Hello everyone, Jace here. So Konami has announced a new mini-box stage of Trickstar, so I'm gonna be reviewing it. So it'll introduce the Trickstar archetype and a Marintus archetype, and we'll be having some support for older decks. So let's go over some of the cards. First up is number C32 Sharkdrake Vice. It requires 4 level 4 water monsters, and you can Xyz summon this card by using one number 32 Sharkdrake you control as the Xyz material. During either player's turn, if you have 1000 life points or less, you can detach one Xyz material from this card and banish one monster from your graveyard, then target one face-up monster on the field. That target's attack and defense becomes 0 until the end of this turn. So this is really bad. So you have to be at 1000 life points or less in order to activate it. And it's really hard to summon. Even though you can rank it up on top of Sharkdrake, that's still 3 level 4s you have to rank up on top of. Next up, I'll be going over the entire Trickstar archetype that they're introducing. They technically did release it, but it was like 3 cards before, so it wasn't really a playable deck. Now they've actually added some like actual playable cards to it. So first up is Trickstar Holly Angel. She's the Link boss monster. It requires 2 Trickstar monsters, and each time a Trickstar monster is normal or special summoned to a zone discard points to, you inflict 1000 damage to your opponent. And Trickstar monsters discard points to cannot be destroyed by a battle or card effect. If your opponents take damage by a Trickstar monster's effect, this card gains attack equal to the damage they took until the end of this turn. So all the Trickstars have nerfed burn damage, which really hurts the archetype. They usually do 200 damage in the TCG and OCG, but here they only do 100. And this really hurts Holly Angel, especially because the second effect, because of that, the second effect gains less attack points. Holly Angel is still like okay. You're still gonna play her in the extra deck. It's just that you usually don't really make her because Trickstars don't really summon a bunch of monsters onto the field. Next star is Trickstar Licorice. Quick effect, you can reveal this card in your hand and target one Trickstar monster you control except Trickstar Licorice. Special summon this card, and if you do, return that monster to the hand. Each time a card is added to your opponent's hand, inflict 100 damage to them for each. So Licorice is really easy to special summon, and if you have multiple in hand, you can actually special summon all of them by targeting the same Trickstar monster. But otherwise, nerf burn damage just hurts this card a lot. And like dealing only 100 means you're basically doing nothing to the opponent for every card they draw, especially since there's no Trickstar reincarnation in this box. Next up is Trickstar Candina. When it's normal summoned, you add one Trickstar card from your deck to your hand, and each time your opponent activates a spell or trap card, you inflict 100 damage to them immediately after it resolves. So this card is not usually sticking on the field too long. You're usually normal summoning it and then searching Licorice and then special summoning Licorice by bouncing Candina back to hand. So yeah, just to say, it's pretty much like the same problem with all the other Trickstars. It's that it just deals 100 points of damage now, and that's just a big it's not as big of a deal for Candina because she's not usually sticking on the field, but sometimes she does, and it's not really good. And next up is Trickstar Black Cat. Each time a monster this card points to is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to a graveyard, inflict 100 damage to your opponent. Each time your opponent takes damage by a Trickstar's monster effect, based on monsters they control, lose 200 attack for each monster this card points to until the end of its turn. So there is an FTK with this that you could pull off if you have we don't have Topologic Bomber Dragon, but if you have Topologic Bomber Dragon, Nightmare Cerberus, and Trickstar Black Cat, if you keep summoning Samsara Lotus, you can FTK your opponent, but we are missing some parts of that combo, so that doesn't exist. And that's really the only use for Black Cat, just because it has weird arrows, so it doesn't continue your link summons, and its effect isn't super great. Next up is Trickstar Bloom. It requires one level 2 or lower Trickstar monster, and if it's link summoned, you can make your opponent draw one card. If a face-up Trickstar monster discard points to is destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can inflict 100 damage to your opponent for each card in their hand. Bloom is pretty bad. You might still play her just because she's an easy link one to make with just any level 2 or lower Trickstars. But to like just help you link climb a little bit by turning them into effect monsters. But Bloom is pretty bad. You're not really using her for the effect. Next up is Trickstar Marintus. It requires 2 level 3 or lower Trickstar monsters, and you can only control one of it. If this card is special summoned, you can inflict 100 damage to your opponent. If your opponent normal or special summons a monster, inflict 100 damage to your opponent. Yeah, this is just pretty bad. Like, same with all the other Trickstars, has nerf burn damage, which is really bad for just in general for the archetype. And its effect really isn't super impactful, even if it was 200. If your opponent just doesn't, just only does like 3 normal summons just to get something with more than 800 attack, they can easily deal with this. Next up is the reprint of Trickstar Lilybell, and next up is Trickstar Mandrake, its actual new card. If this card is sent from the hand to the graveyard, you can special summon this card in defense position but banish it when it leaves the field. If this card is sent to the graveyard as link material for a link summon of a Trickstar link of a Trickstar monster, you can target one monster opponent's link monster points to, destroy it. So like this card is okay. It's searchable off of Candina at least, so you can play one of it, but it doesn't have a burn damage effect, but like its utility of destroying a monster your opponent's link monster points to might be good. Next up is Trickstar Rodode. You can discard one Trickstar card, then target a Trickstar link monster in your graveyard, special summon it. And each time a card is banished from your opponent's graveyard, immediately inflict 100 damage to your opponent for each card banished. This one's just kind of weird. The first effect is okay, because it's a monster reborn friend your Trickstar links. But the second effect is just kind of silly, because no other card in this archetype actually helps burn your opponent with this effect. And that's it for the Trickstars, because the rest are just reprints. Actually, Bouquet is new, I think. Target one Trickstar monster you control and one face-up monster in the field. Return that Trickstar monster to the hand, and if you do, the other monster gains attack equal to the original attack of the return monster until the end of its turn. I mean, it's just like a battle trick that's only useful in the damage step. And other cards that are sort of notable for Trickstars are Poison of the Old Man, just because it deals 400 burn damage. Its life point gain isn't changed at all, which is actually kind of funny. And then Dark Room of Nightmare also helps the Trickstar archetype just by dealing a little bit more burn damage. But since all their burn is nerfed, it's still really hard to use them. But yeah, Trickstar overall kind of sucks. They can still do their resource loop with Candina, add Licorice, bounce back Candina to use Licorice next turn. But that might not. That's not super strong. And the skills that Sky's Eisen brings is not super helpful either for the deck. Next up is a couple one-off cards. Is Shooting Code Talker. It requires 2 Cybers type monsters at the start of your battle phase. You can activate this effect. This battle phase, this card can make attacks on your opponent's monsters up to a number of monsters they control. No, up to the number of monsters this card currently points to +1. But this turn, when it attacks your opponent's only monster, this card loses 400 attack during the damage calculation only. At the end of the battle phase, you draw cards equal to the number of monsters this card is destroyed by battle this turn. So most of the time you can only hit with one monster just because it only points downwards if it's in the extra monster zone. So you're only getting 2 attacks out of this, so it's not super great. I mean, it's still playable just because it's a good code talker, and it does help deal with wider boards with smaller monsters. So I think it's still okay in a code talker deck, but I don't think you'd play it in any other Cybers deck. Next up is Injection Fairy Lily. If this card is attacked or is attacked during the damage calculator, During damage calculation, in either player's turn, you can pay 200 life points per battle. This card gains 300 attack during that damage calculation only. So yeah, this is like okay, it's just like a big beat stick, really. That might be good in some decks just because it can get like super huge, but you can only use it once, really. And then you leave yourself vulnerable, so you better like be ending the game that turn. And next up is Atlantee Dragoons. All level 3 or lower Sea Serpent type monsters you control can attack your opponent directly. When this card is sent to a graveyard to activate a water monster's effect, add 1 Sea Serpent monster from your deck to your hand except Atlantee Dragoons. So like this helps Water Xyz really. Like you could play a couple of these and this helps search out Diva once it's sent to a grave to activate an effect of like an Xyz monster, or like if you discard it for something, for a water monster thing. I don't think Water Xyz really has any of those, but like if you can use this as material for something for one of your Water Xyz monsters, and you can then search out Diva for follow-up or something, so that's pretty decent. Next up is Xyz Remora. You can special summon this card by detaching 2 Xyz materials from monsters you control. When you do, you can target 2 level 4 fish monsters in your graveyard. Special summon those targets in face-up defense position. Their effects are negated, they cannot attack or change their battle positions, and cannot be used as Xyz material for an Xyz summon except for the Xyz summon of a water monster. So like this card is kind of confusing because you don't really want to detach materials from their monsters that you control. But it does put out a bunch of like bodies to like potentially Xyz summon. It still just seems kind of weird though to actually use. Next up is Cat Shark. It requires 2 level 2 monsters, and when this card has an Xyz material that was originally in water, it cannot be destroyed by battle. And once per turn during either player's turn, you can target 1 Xyz material from this card, target 1 rank 4 or lower Xyz monster you control, its attack becomes double its original attack until the end of this turn. Cat Shark is actually pretty decent in Water Xyz, because you can normal summon a Diva, special summon another Diva, and then make this. And this could like help you finish games. Otherwise it's just like okay. But you probably could run one of this in Water Xyz. Next up are 2 Paleozoic cards. Paleozoic Olenoids and then Paleozoic Opabinia. Olenoids is basically a feathers dust. It's basically a dust tornado. Like it targets a spell or trap on the field and destroys it, which is okay. It's not super impactful just because it's a trap, so it's not as versatile as like MST. But like, this is really good for like pure Paleozoic decks, and Opabinia is especially good because you can activate trap cards from your hand, which is pretty cool. It make it so that they're protected from like MSTs, and you can detach material from the card to add a Paleozoic trap card from your deck to your hand. So like you can search like a Canadia for fun. If you can make this turn 1, you can search a Canadia, which is really strong. And since it's generically a rank 2, you can put this in like Water Xyz actually. Like summon a Diva, special summon a Diva, make this search like a Paleozoic Canadia for disruption on your opponent's turn. Next up is Marintus. So they're releasing 3 Marintus cards in this box, but with only 3 cards, you can't really make the Marintus deck. They're releasing Coral Anemone, which is the Link 2. It requires 2 water monsters, so it's generic, and you can target 1 water monster with 1500 or less attack in your graveyard and special summon it to a zone this card points to. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except water monsters. And if this card is sent from the field to a graveyard, you can target 1 Marintus card in your graveyard, except Coral Anemone, and then add it to your hand. So, the first effect is pretty much the most relevant in like non-Marintus decks. You can like recover one of your 1500 or less attack monsters. Like maybe in like Water Xyz, this would be really good for like recovering one of your Atlanteans. But otherwise, this card, like there are a couple water decks that could use this card, and since it's generic and has a downward pointing arrow, it's pretty decent in most of them. Next up is going to be Marintus Seahorse, which is probably the best main deck Marintus that we got. You can special summon this card from your hand to a zone that Marintus Link monster points to, but you can only special summon Marintus Seahorse once per turn this way. And during your main phase, except the turn this was sent to a graveyard, you can banish it and then special summon a water monster from your hand to a zone that Marintus Link monster points to. So it's okay. It has 1500. It has less than 1500 attack, which is supposed to synergize with Coral Enemy, but like you can't really link climb any higher into anything. I guess you can make like a shooting code talker with this, but like that's not super great as a finisher. And then Sea Star is really bad. It's not even a quick effect, but you send this card from your hand to a graveyard to target a Marintus monster you control and it gains 800. So like, it's not even a quick effect, so this is really bad. It's just like 800 boost for nothing, really. And next up is that Gusto Phoenix, which is just, that was part of the selection box, so that's just a reprint. And other notable cards are Mistar Boy, which is like a really good generic link to Flora Water decks, because it gives all water monsters on the field 500 attacks. And when it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one water monster engrave and add it to your hand. So it has some floating effect, which is nice. Binary Sorceress is also a decent generic. It has effects when code-linked, and when a monster code-linked to its card battles your opponent's monster and inflicts battle damage to them, it gains that much attack, which can like help close out games. And then once per turn, quick effect, if it's code-linked to two monsters, you target two face-up monsters you control until the end of this turn. Have the attack of one of the monsters and add that lost attack to the other monster, which is an okay effect. You can potentially, like, if you like really need to boost up a monster to like a really big amount, you could target one of your medium attack monsters and then give it to another medium attack monster. But like, that's not a super impactful effect. There's also Sea Archiver, which is a good generic extender for any Cybers deck. If a monster is normal or special summoned to a zone a link monster points to, you can special summon this card from your graveyard or hand, but banish it when it leaves the field. So like, this can help in like certain decks, like Salamangreat. You can potentially, it helps extend so you can make like a rank 3 or something even, and that way when it goes to a graveyard, it doesn't go to get banished when it's attached to Xyz material. And Hippo Shingen is also really good for light decks. It just requires 2 light monsters, and it's the same as Mistar Boy, but just for lights, which is really nice. But that's pretty much it for every other notable card. There are some like interesting cards that they put in, like they put in Ebon Magician Kirin, and I think they reprinted White Magician Pikaru, but like those cards are not good. And that's pretty much it for the box. So overall, Stage of Trickstar is a really weird box. There are a couple good cards in here for water decks specifically, but like Trickstars themselves don't seem super great because they don't really have a win condition. And like the other generic cards are just like really bad. Like they just have a bunch of pack filler in the below rare slots. But like if you're a Water Xyz player, you probably want to dig into this box just for the good couple cards it gives for that deck. So yeah, comment down below what you think of this box and if you're gonna buy it or not. And then like and subscribe if you want to see more of these Duel Links box reviews. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.